What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's Yap session. Now, as you can see by the monitors behind me, we'll be talking about the latest hit game, Dispatch, which I've caught up to at this point, played all the episodes, and today I thought it'd be fun ahead of episodes 7 and 8 that release next week on Wednesday, November 12th. I figured it'd be fun to dive into some theories, kind of catch up on what we know so far and what to look ahead to in our season 1 finale. Should be obvious at this point, but if you haven't finished episodes 5 and 6, this is your spoiler warning. You can get off now, come back to after you've completed it. So obviously the big thing at the end of episode 6 is that Chase is presumably dead. He uses his powers to help Invisig Girl after she gets the astral pulse and Shroud is there. He sacrificed himself to save Invisig Girl after their little falling out and him saying that, you know, she'll never be good. She's not really a real hero. You know, she's nothing like Robert is. But I think her going to get the astral pulse and sacrifice herself on the line like that kind of proved to him that, oh, she's, you know, she has a chance to be good, and makes his ultimate sacrifice of using his powers, which, as you know, we learned in our earlier episode, that rapidly ages him. That's why he's as old as he is now, because when he was using it so much in his prime days of being a hero, it has rapidly aged him to where he's at now, even though literally I think he was around the same age as Robert. There's this breakdown here that I seen from Ace Creative Games, I'll throw it up on screen as well, talking about that the scene of Chase using his powers to save her is 21 seconds long, and by his calculations would only be 17 actual minutes of aging. So basically the theory is that when we see Chase at the end collapse, it's not that his heart stopped or, you know, he had a stroke or, you know, just dead after using his powers sort of thing. It could just be, as old as he is, he hasn't used his powers in however many years since the last time, that it was just extraneous on the body to anyone, but especially someone that hasn't used it in a while and somebody that is physically his age, but his body being that old, using the superpowers, the super speed, that strain on the body is just a lot. So it could his body just gassing out and he could still be alive, just unconscious or literally can't move his body because of using his powers. Another interesting thing that somebody pointed out is that the path that Chase takes to get to the warehouse to then save Vizzy is not a straight line. If you look at the map, there was an optimal route to it. So to counter the past and the other theory, he could have wanted to overuse his powers to kind of off himself, because he's not exactly happy with being the age that he is physically, when, you know, mentally and everything, he is a lot younger. Having that toll of being that old when he didn't really want to be. He joked about that in the previous episode as well, just that he can't do a lot of the things that he is used to doing or want to be doing or should be doing because of how old he is. So he could have overused his powers, purposely using, you know, knowing this is going to be the last time he can use his powers, so kind of taking the less optimal route, because he's still super fast, he's still going to get there anyway, but not taking the absolute shortest amount of time to make sure he overuses his powers so that he doesn't come back with it and have to deal with those consequences of that amount of strain on his body. This one is no real theory, kind of just where we're at right now in the story and what could be down the line. So in the recent episode with Invisig Girl going to get the astral pulse and Shroud showing up there after her getting through all the other enemies, and the when she makes the mention of the group chat thing, that somebody must have dropped a pin in the group chat of where the astral pulse is, how it was there, and how they knew that it was going to be there, although they didn't know it was, you know, in the safe, of course. There's a very strong chance that there is a traitor in the Z team, because they devised that entire plan away from the office as well. And this was just during the housewarming party, they came up with the plan to go after the pulse. Malevola, Invisig Girl, and Royd were the first ones to join the party. They could have talked about this at, you know, at the headquarters or on their way or whatever. So there's a chance, I guess, somebody overheard them on the way there, but they devised that plan at the party with the map and the breakdown of everything that they kind of learned and knew about. All those villains knowing about that on that exact day when they had just talked about it means that chances are there is a traitor in the Z team. There is some hints and things like that, that Shroud had an insider, or there's perhaps a traitor within our team. The leading theory was that it was going to be Invisig Girl, and that she had worked with Shroud, or maybe was still working with Shroud, and her being so capable and able to spy on everybody, even back in episode 1 when Blazer's first introducing us to the office and everything like that, and we're in the office where we're changing into our clothes, and Robert throws his shirt and she's right there and she didn't know the whole time. So obviously her powers are very good for spying, intel, that sort of thing. So it kind of made sense that she could be the mole that Shroud is getting this info from. But in my opinion, after the most recent episodes, I think it's very clear that she is not the mole. There could be more to her character that she's not leading on, not sharing with us yet, of course. But I think that all theories are disproven there that she is not the mole, it's somebody else within our team. It really could be anybody, but some leading, candidates, I guess, would be Blonde Blazer, of course, Royd potentially. I've seen people mention that perhaps it's Punch Up or Malevola, depending on who you cut from the team, Sonar or Coop, since they kind of hold a grudge against you for doing that. There's a chance that all of these villains on the Z team have worked with Shroud in the past. Him having the status and the group that he's had, even just from the beginning episode, we saw that when we're going to infiltrate and all those villains are there attacking us. He has a big network of villains, and it's very possible and probably likely that one, if not multiple, of these characters have worked with Shroud in the past. An interesting one that I kind of thought of was the cat mascot that's in the background of things. We don't really know what he is or what he does, so it could be just an interesting thing if you've seen him. I mean, he's even in like the artwork and stuff like that for the game if you've gotten the deluxe edition, in the background of things like that. But you see him around the office, things like that. Obviously, he wasn't at the party, so could be a difference there. But it really could just be anybody at this point. But chances are that somebody was working with Shroud and getting him all this info, so he knew where the Astral Pulse was, knew that Invisig Girl was there to get it, and had all these like constant live updates of the team. I have to mention the theory I saw that Beef is not actually a dog, and that he is a robot. Beef is always around. Robert brings him to work. Chase was watching him for him at the office and stuff like that. And Beef is always around and there for these things. In the most recent episode, before Chase takes off to get Invisig Girl, he's laying in Robert's lap and looks up at him and looks at him. And it could be that he's some sort of robot that Shroud uses to gather intel and can tap in, remotely to his eyes as cameras, and can hear everything people are saying, and you wouldn't think anything else of it if he acts the same way. Obviously a far out theory, but one that I got to bring up in case it happens. Staying on the topic of Shroud, an interesting one I saw at the end of the most recent episode is that when Shroud is there to kind of blindside Invisig Girl after she grabs the Astral Pulse from the safe and has the briefcase, we see her with the pulse, and then we see her walk out of the doors with the briefcase, and that's what Shroud has at the end of the episode. So the theory here is that Invisig Girl never put the Astral Pulse into the suitcase. When she's looking at it, holding it up above the suitcase, and when it cuts to the next scene, she's already walking out of the door and has the briefcase in her hands. But we never actually see her put the Astral Pulse back into the briefcase. Could be that the briefcase is empty, and obviously Shroud wouldn't know it because he'd have no way of knowing if the pulse was in there or not, and would be an even interesting layer to Chase's sacrifice, not knowing that she has the pulse, but in his sacrifice of using his powers, going in there to save her, would also save the pulse, which now Robert can have to give to Royd, and they continue to build the Mecha Man suit for him again. I actually am kind of on board for this, and I think this would be a cool twist. It's just in her pocket or something, and there'd be some sort of thing that she would, when Robert goes to check on them as where he was leaving in the most recent episode, when he gets there, that she'll pull it out of her pocket and be revealed that she never actually put it back in the briefcase, and that Shroud will be kind of where he started before, thinking that he had the drop on this Astral Pulse, and all he's got is an empty briefcase. And I think that would be pretty sick. Now, this one, I'm not sure how possible it would be as far as romance options. I'd seen some people comment on there not being any other romance options besides Blonde Blazer and Invisig Girl, and wanting other romance options. One particular instance, Prideful Sin had tweeted that Malevola should be a romance option. So the studio, Ad Hoc Studio, that created the game, responded to that tweet and said, maybe you're just making all the wrong choices. So this could mean that there actually are other romance options, Malevola being one of them, or they're just trolling and it really is just Blonde Blazer or Invisig Girl. But I have seen that a lot by a lot of people, that they want other romance options besides those two. But for the storyline being 8 episodes and this being what I believe is the first game from Ad Hoc Studios, it's easier to have a little bit more, have the choices matter, of course, but somewhat of a linear story in a way, so that you don't have to go through all those extra animating scenes, dialogue, just programming the game to work for those extra branches and stuff. Keeping it a little more linear keeps that consistency a little bit more. And of course, for budgeting and for time and all that work and all that even, could just save you a little bit there. Another interesting one, I kind of mentioned before that Invisig Girl may not be totally transparent. See what I did there? I think in episode 1, Blonde Blazer had mentioned it's best not to just ask, and they kind of don't really care. For something that could be more personal, especially with somebody you're getting closer with or to the team with, Robert, for example, having the option to, which I think is the better option of the two, honestly, but having the option to tell the team that he is Mecha Man, and although it pisses off Flambe because of their history and him losing his fingers to Robert and everything, that openness and transparency seems to be a genuine step for the team and building and everything like that. And while that scene's going on, you can kind of see something click in Invisig Girl's head there a little bit. Maybe she second guesses herself. And the theory on that could be that from episode 1 in the beginning, how Robert lost the suit and everything, the bomb that blew up when he was using the pulse to escape Shroud and the other villains at that hideout, the bomb that blew up on him was actually placed there from Invisig Girl. Would make sense because it's so easy for her to get around, he wouldn't have noticed her. The suit doesn't recognize anything until he's already up in the air, and then it says the thing that there's the foreign device detected on the suit. Would make sense that either in the air maybe somehow, or right before he had taken off, when he's kind of stuck there in the shield thing, that she was able to get in and place the bomb on him, and that was her doing. And she's kind of the reason that he lost all of that, lost being Mecha Man, lost the suits, lost that family legacy, and kind of lost himself a little bit before Blonde Blazer had stepped in with the offer to work for the team there and be a dispatcher. So I actually really like this. I think this would be a super cool layer to their relationship and to the story and just their relationship, them as characters. And maybe there's even an option off of that when she does, if she does, be vulnerable and disclose that to Robert. Maybe there's a thing where, you know, you can choose to forgive her or not forgive her. So if you're kind of on the romance option with her already, maybe that totally halts that, maybe pushes it forward. If you're on that and you do decide to forgive her, maybe it affects Robert even being able to go back into the Mecha Man suit, having to deal with that fact, you know? So I think that'd be actually a very cool one, and one I would actually be interested in seeing how that plays out, whether there's a choice layered on top of that or not. But just, yeah, if Invisig Girl really had worked with Shroud in the past and is kind of the reason that he lost everything. And of course, the biggest unanswered question so far of Dispatch: who is Shroud? What is Shroud's identity? Does he have a connection to us, to anybody in the team, anybody at the Dispatch headquarters, to anyone at all? With Robert's history with Shroud, of course, us knowing that he killed his father and everything, we need answers. And it sounds like we're gonna get them in some capacity in Chapter 8, whether he discloses his identity. Maybe we don't get to know that before we have the option to kill him or spare him. Maybe he does, and that happens, you know, there's a bunch of ways this could play out. But who is Shroud? A couple theories I've seen, one being is that Shroud is actually Robert's father, which would be a crazy Star Wars like turn of events like thing here. Super interesting to think about if it is Robert's dad. I mean, he clearly didn't want to kill Robert. He just wanted the Astral Pulse at episode 1. I don't think he had a real intention of killing Robert. Again, not only going off to what I was saying before with Invisig Girl planting the bomb, but Shroud being the main antagonist in all of this, that being Robert's father, for whatever reason. Maybe he was done with the suit. Maybe he, you know, had his own goals that he wanted to be this other vigilante route. I think could be a very interesting path here. Some other theories I've seen is that Of course, we won't really know who Shroud is. He'll just be some guy, but he'll have some sort of connection to the team. Maybe Blonde Blazer is his daughter, or maybe he works for the company in some way, or previously, or I don't know. It makes sense though that his story would be interconnected with Robert's. That is the biggest question. We don't really have too much answers off of that. We're kind of grabbing at straws here as far as Shroud's identity, but something that will absolutely get revealed, I would assume, in the upcoming episodes, and super interested, of course, to see how that plays out. And of course, another question just based off of the success of the game, both commercially and just people being so invested in it, myself included, is will we get another season of this? We'll kind of have to see how this ends, but yeah, will this kind of be the end of the Dispatch story of this world and these characters, or could we get another season, perhaps some spin-off games or stuff like that? I think could be pretty cool. Next thing I wanted to talk about is that the trophies for episode 7 and 8 are actually released. I've seen this from a post from Stars or Stellar. As you've gotten achievements or trophies throughout the game, it doesn't necessarily say what you got them for. A lot of times it's just every time, it's just a line of dialogue that was like kind of the last scene before that decision or the end of that episode or anything like that. So they have some of those for the last 2 episodes. So if you want to go completely blind and not want to know any of this stuff, I totally understand. But if you are interested, I will break them down for you now. So as you can see here, from the bottom 3 ones, you've got I'm a Bleeder, Any Plans Tonight, and We Can Just Be Friends. The stipulations in that order is Kiss on a Stretcher, Kiss on a Car, and Kept Romance Out of the Workplace. If I had to guess, episode 7 would be where the romance and relationship choices are more heavy, whereas episode 8 maybe still plays a part, of course, but the main focus is going to be on wrapping up our story, Shroud, and yeah, just Robert's arc. Stretcher, Car, and then the We Can Just Be Friends, Kept Romance Out of the Workplace. Obviously, if you probably did not want to pursue anybody, I'm guessing you can get this even if you did the Blazer date, dinner date versus the Invisig Girl movie date, because you don't have to kiss in the Blonde Blazer one, and you don't have an option to kiss in the Invisig Girl one. So there'll probably be another option, I'm guessing, whereas the Car and the Stretcher come in. I'm not really sure where either one would come from. The fact that it says on a car instead of in a car makes me assume that that one was probably for Blonde Blazer, maybe something with her powers or something, whereas the Stretcher one, we kind of see that bad things happen to Invisig Girl, so the more different one could be, but this could also very well be reversed. Blonde Blazer can get in on the action when you're fighting Shroud maybe, or some sort of attack, and be on a stretcher, or maybe Robert's on a stretcher. You know, we just seen him in the hospital after the explosion of the Mecha Man suit. Yeah, those are gonna be the 3 romance options for the trophies. All right, moving on from that, you have I Can Confirm He's a Badass, chose the path of mercy, and Murda chose the path of violence. I would assume that these are for Shroud. When we had the conversation with Chase, he asked if we would be able to kill Shroud if given the chance. So I think that in episode 8, we're gonna get that chance. We're gonna have the opportunity to kill Shroud or spare Shroud. I will be getting the Murda trophy, but those are the 2 trophies for that choice. And then the final 3, All Gas No Brakes Baby, which is Protected Los Angeles, Sorry Kid, which has succeeded as a mentor and didn't see that coming, failed as a mentor. It's interesting if those are for the Z team as a whole, and Robert's choices with them, how you handle them up to this point, if there's some sort of branching thing where they can be, you know, heroes and, you know, continue to be heroes, or if they are still villains, maybe they leave the Z team, continue to be villains. I don't know, it could really go either way. But kind of an ongoing theory right now is that there may be a sacrifice that Robert has to make, whether it's for the Z team, whether it's the one to protect the entire Los Angeles, most likely something to do with the Astral Pulse. Could be a choice of his mech suit, whether to save the mech suit or perhaps sacrifice it, but save members of the Z team, whether it's the entire team, whether it's Invisig Girl, whether it's the Dispatch HQ, some sort of sacrifice there, I would assume around Robert being able to be Mecha Man again, or giving his Mecha Man up for his new role in coaching and dispatching the heroes. Another thing, obviously, could be a literal sacrifice of Robert if he has to make some sort of literal sacrifice, whether it be in the Mecha Man suit, whether it be something with Shroud, but something where we have the choice to sacrifice ourselves, perhaps to save Los Angeles, and Robert dies and the entire city of Los Angeles lives, or Robert lives and there's attack on civilians, attack on our teammates, attack on something, that we have that choice in the final episode. But of course, it's fun to theorize and come up with these theories and point out these things and stuff like that. But we have no idea until this Wednesday, November 12th, when the final 2 episodes come out. So let me know your thoughts. If you agree with any of these theories, feel free, of course, to share your own or little things you might have picked up in the recent episodes or anything leading up to this point now and the upcoming finale. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.